Hey everyone, welcome to Hope for Survival YouTube. Thanks for tuning in and welcome to all the new subscribers. Thanks for joining us on this preparedness journey that we're on to the unknown. I'm honored and privileged this evening recording this to have a dear friend back with us. It's been a little bit. We had the fortune of having her with us on our Hope for Survival monthly Zoom call last week or a week before last. I can't remember. But anyway, Chaplain Tracy Elder is joining us from somewhere up in the Northeast. And I'm happy to have her back to have this discussion. Chaplain Tracy, welcome back. Thanks for joining us again.
Yeah, so glad to be here.
Good to have you.
Yeah.
I know that I know since we worked Hurricane Helene together
hmm
over in Carter County, it kind of journeyed in different directions.
hmm
I know that you have followed closely everything that's going on in the nation and in your
hmm
home area as well as around the world. And
hmm
uh, to start off, um, give me a 3 to 5 minute assessment of where you think things stand nationally.
Well, I'm going to try and keep that pretty precise.
I got a lot to ask you
There's
tonight.
a lot, there's a lot going on, and I'm a talker. So anyway, um, there's a lot going on, and I had just this morning I had written down some what we used to call when we were kids current events
Yeah,
that you could get,
yeah,
that you can get from anywhere. So. But as far as the things that are actually being flagged that the intelligence community and the other communities are actually looking at, and the government, other people, whether it's at a local level or at a national level, people are looking at these. So the increase of the severe weather events that are across the nation,
yeah,
we have no doubt that the weather has been increasingly severe, and there are several reasons for that. And some of it has to do with the fact that I'm not an astrologist, or astronomy. I'm not an astronomer,
yeah,
but they've got they talk about we're moving into a different,
yes,
the earth is moving into a different alignment with all this other kind of stuff. So they are attributing some of that, and they attribute the severe weather to those different changes. Also, not just from an astronomical view, but from an internal view, the pressure inside the earth is changing. So you're seeing a lot more fractures, like over in Africa. All of a sudden the ground splits and a river forms all the way across this one section of Africa. All these different things are happening in different places. We've been getting earthquakes here in Ohio more frequently as well too. So, so it's from within and from without. Isn't that very interesting?
yeah.
So we talk a lot about creative tension. So there's something going on with that. But there are people there are people that are looking at that. Grid instability and the national power outages. They're all going to start local and they're going to be regional to begin with. So you're going to have some places that are going to start with rolling brownouts and things like that. And the more of these data centers that come online, the more stress and strain on the grid that there's going to be. And if you look at the map, they're tracking all of these new data centers going up, and not all of them have their own independent power supply. When President Trump had talked about those data centers building their own power plants to sustain them because the grid can't handle it. Well, they're being built rapidly, and most of them are tying into the grid. So we can expect some of those things to start happening soon. There's predictions that as early as November, December, coming with this winter, when the need for electricity goes up, when people turn the furnaces on, they're still looking at what it might look like this summer, but specifically, through this next winter, if it's going to be as harsh as this last one was across the nation, then they're anticipating some power outages, some fluctuations, some brownouts, possibly blackouts. So we're here. Ari's been talking about that for years, but we're at the point now where it's not just something to talk about, it's probably imminent, pretty imminent. Also, the rising cyber threats against the infrastructure. We are, as a nation, aren't set up the same way as the actors are that are committing the cyber terrorism. So if you look at, say, China as an actor, they have like 50,000 to one.
Yeah.
So they have 50,000 people trying to get into your information to one person trying to keep them out. It's a tidal wave. And so that's happening, and you're finding more and more hacks, more and more scams going on. There's every day there's a new scam alert in the CISA world. So that's going on there too. Supply chain disruptions, that's going to continue. But it's not just it's affecting food, fuel, medicine, but it's affecting a lot of other things too. Right now, if you look in Europe, Europe is now putting rations and a new tax on things like sugar
Yeah.
and tobacco. Yes, did you see that?
Yeah.
Yeah, so they're actually doing that because of the supply chain issues. The medication is going to continue to be an issue because most of our medication is offshore.
Yeah.
So you do have companies now that are being reindustrialized to do pharmaceuticals here onshore, but it takes time to build that whole infrastructure back up. So we can still be seeing some of those supplies being a problem. Economic uncertainty. That's going to be a big one too. People are looking at the gas prices, even though these are probably temporary, because once this war is over and then everything else begins to flow, again, then that will start to come back down. And part of the issue with the fuel supply and the issues that come along with it is because people in America do not understand how this works. We have a lot of oil. We have a lot of oil. We're digging a lot of oil, but the problem is that we don't have the refineries
Correct.
here. The refineries that we have were built in the 60s and 70s, and they aren't able to refine the type of oil that we are drilling ourselves. So what people didn't realize, the whole thing about the Maduro thing and the Venezuela thing, why that was important to the US, one of the reasons for that was because we got most of our oil that we refined from Venezuela for decades, decades and decades and decades. And we would sell them, we would export our what's known as sweet crude to them, and then we would import from them their rough crude because that's what our refineries here can refine. We can't refine the sweet crude, and it's been that way since the 60s and 70s. So, and then all of our refineries, they haven't been updated, upgraded, or rebuilt or built to take on what we actually produce here in America. So for decades, we had different types of agreements with different types of countries to be able to import, export at lower prices. That's why back in the 80s, if you remember, gas was like a buck,
Yeah.
buck to a buck 80. That was why we had that whole system going on to where we were importing, exporting at the same level, and it benefited both countries. So Venezuela was number one that we import export. So this whole thing with Maduro and the way that the communists take over the industry, they make it all state owned instead of independent and people owned. Then they lock it down, and so that created part of the problem. That was another reason why. The narco terrorism plus the oil stuff, all that stuff, all of these things had to happen. So same thing with Iran at this point. You're seeing that the UAE and several other OPEC countries are leaving OPEC.
Yeah. I
And
heard
so
that.
what's happening is we're now pivoting through President Trump, we're now pivoting away from the European markets and more toward the Middle Eastern markets, which are now on board for joining a different economy. And so they're leaving those institutions that they've been in for 50 and 60 years to become independent nations again, to set their own prices, to make their own deals instead of voting as a bloc, instead of working as a bloc, which didn't always benefit everybody in the same way. So now, you could call it the market system
Yeah.
is now taking over in that part of the world. So that's really important to know. But if we understand what's going on, but the gas prices will start to come down once this conflict is resolved, and things start flowing again. So once people begin to understand what's really happening, Glenn Beck did a really, really good information video on that thing about the oil refineries and how that works. I think he did a great job explaining that. So if anybody listens to Glenn Beck, he's got one really good on that. Growing strain on first responders and emergency systems. And people don't think about that one. There are growing strains. Think about all of the emergencies that we have had in the last 2 years alone. Natural disasters, plus all of the plus all of the civil unrest and those protests that they're having. That is civil unrest.
Yeah.
That is not a protest. Those are not peaceful protests. Those are civil unrests bought and paid for by special interest groups that are trying to change the dialogue in our nation to one of victimhood. And this is exactly the same way it started in the Soviet Union. So if you've ever read Atlas Shrugged, anything by Ayn
Oh yeah.
Rand, if you've ever read anything, this is exactly the way it started for her when and again, she was in part of that system when she grew up in that system and was able to leave, and so many more were left behind. She specifically, even 50 years ago in the 1950s, she was writing about this, about what she was seeing, the beginning stages of it. Now we're 50 years on, 60 years on, and all of those things have come into play. Who would have thought that we would have a communist, out and out, full blown communist, as the mayor of New York City? Do you see what I'm saying? So that's happening in so many different areas, and people need to understand how that's happening. And it happens mostly through the college system and the other things that have just
Education.
been eroded. Yeah, eroded. And midterm elections are really important for that reason. If Republicans and conservatives are notoriously absent
Yeah.
in midterm elections, and that's where the things get done. That's how things get taken away, and people need to vote no matter what the issues are or who the candidates are. They need to get out and vote. But the growing strain on the first responders and the emergency services, we are at a lack of resources at county levels and state levels, which is where all of that begins. And the federal government, again, does not have the resources to manage the large number of disasters that are being declared. Think about the California wildfires alone. Think about the property losses in the billions that took, and FEMA was declared. Well, the federal government doesn't have the resources
Yeah.
available
Most people
either
don't
to take
understand
care
that.
of, yes, of that one. And if New Orleans gets hit with another hurricane, or the Gulf Coast or Florida, or they don't have enough resources, and the emergency service workers and the police personnel, the fire personnel, and any other emergency or disaster person, they're already strained with the civil unrest and some of the other things that are going on. Crime is out of control in a lot of different places. And so there's a lot of strain going on in a lot of different areas. Um, Communities are becoming more self-reliant during emergencies. They have to. It's out of self-imposed.
Self
Um,
survival.
yeah, yeah. They're learning this behavior. Think about where we were.
Yeah.
They were not prepared for what happened to them. And again, where was it written anywhere that a hurricane would hit that part of Tennessee
Yeah.
and flood them to that degree? I mean, it's just ridiculously crazy that anybody would even predict for that. But the fact of the matter is that they became rapidly overwhelmed there and in North Carolina, in the North Carolina side. And again, think about the disasters that caused, not just there, but in the Gulf Coast and Florida, all of the money. But there's not an endless pot of money for disasters. But we're finding that maybe some of that money was diverted with this fraud stuff to illegal immigration or used in other ways that was designated for some of this stuff. So they're looking into that part of the fraud too, because a lot of that money that was supposed to be used for this type of disaster or something like that was diverted to other not legal means.
Yeah.
So some key points, that, I kind of wanted to bring in is that we have to understand that for most people, it used to be that preparedness was paranoia. Well, preparedness is no longer perceived as paranoia in the mainstream anymore. They're looking at it as a personal responsibility. So you're seeing more and more people, more and more county governments, more and more states coming out and talking to people about preparedness. They're talking to people in their community levels. They're talking to county commissioners. They're talking to mayors about the personal responsibility of getting their citizens prepared for anything that might come. You see this very strongly in Europe. They've opened up the old World War II bunkers.
Correct.
They've given stuff to the citizens in preparedness. So they've given each community member, each family, a certain survival box with tools and things like that in it that they're going to need to take away the expense of the people trying to get it for themselves. I mean, it's basic stuff, but it's a start. And so there's planning going on, there's execution going on with getting those things into the hands and getting the word out. But again, that's we really need to take that as a key point, that preparedness is no longer paranoia. It is a personal responsibility and it's a community responsibility, because nobody's going to come and save us, which is something we've been saying for years.
Yeah.
Nobody's coming to save us, right? Um,
Yeah.
Preparedness shouldn't begin nationally. It has to begin regionally. It has to begin in our communities. It has to begin with us as individuals. It has to. There's no other way that it's going to get done. It's just like any other movement, any other type of grassroots, anything. It has to start with us and move out. You know what I'm
Well,
saying?
it's your personal insurance policy. You
Absolutely.
have insurance for everything in the world: car, your
Yeah.
home, your health, your kids, your life, and so on.
Hmm.
But the most important things that you have to live day to day, food and water,
Yeah.
people ignore it and they simply assume it's going to always be at the local market,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
even when you tell them, hey, in my former life, I've been in countries to where there wasn't food in the stores on a regular day.
Yeah.
People would
Yeah.
line up for a mile just to get a loaf of bread if they were lucky,
Well,
you
guess
know.
what? That just happened in New York City, didn't it? With their free food market, and see how that worked out.
Yeah. And um,
Everything works until it doesn't.
yeah, in 2019 when I wrote my first book, I think it was on page 18, I believe. Uh, I haven't looked at it in a while. I wrote in there that from the level of the federal government, you don't matter, and it's not
Mhm.
personal.
Right.
But the federal, it's like we talked about in Zoom. The federal government focuses on federal things,
Infrastructure.
critical infrastructure. The
Yeah.
state focuses on state things. In almost every case, as we witnessed at Hurricane Helene, and
Hmm.
there's still in Yancey and Mitchell County, North Carolina,
Hmm.
ongoing recovery. It's all community. It's the
Yeah.
community that is ensuring that the people there survive, that they get their
Yeah.
homes rebuilt. They're not getting help from the outside.
No.
So, so even when you know, when I started the 5 mile radius thing, it was self, family, community, and the 5 mile radius, pushing the threat
Hmm.
away from you, whether it was a
Yeah.
100 yards, 1,000 yards, a mile, and beyond. We just call it the 5 mile radius.
Hmm.
And you know, when you talk, when you teach the class, people are writing notes and on. Then you get that deer in the headlight look of, holy cow, I can't do all this. Well, let me tell you, can't never could do anything to start with.
Hmm.
70 to 80% of the task in doing that area assessment for all the different areas in your risk assessment, threat assessment, vulnerabilities, where do you mitigate? 70%, 80% of it you can do sitting at your computer doing
Yeah.
research. You can go to citydata.com,
Yeah.
Nexus Lexus, which I use often, but you can get this data to
Hmm.
build these forms, and then get in your car and go get you a Twinkie or a ding dong and a Starbucks coffee and drive around and look
Love it.
in these areas where we're talking about. When you're looking at your terrain, do you have
Hmm.
dams? do you have other type of threats that if it got in the wrong hands, or a natural disaster, you know, look
Mhm.
during Hurricane Helene in East Tennessee area,
Yeah.
the threats of the dams breaking and flooding even more,
Right.
you
Well,
know.
when you look at this, when there, if you look at a 5 mile radius philosophy,
Yeah,
um, your survival, the zone that you have for your personal survival zone is not the entire country. It's your first 5 miles.
ding
And so you
ding
don't
ding
have to,
ding ding ding
yeah,
ding ding.
yeah, yeah, you
Hey,
don't have to look, yeah, you don't have to look at the entirety of the nation. You have to look where you are. And again, that's where this is. So
that's where
why
they're
the five
missing it.
miles in the first place? So most emergencies are hyper local.
Yeah,
They're not, and you know what I'm saying? And they come and they go. Normally in rural communities you don't have long sustained emergencies, and neither do you at a national level, right? So a hurricane comes, it does its damage, there's cleanup, there's a recovery effort, so you have all of that, and then it's done, then it's over,
they're
life
gone.
is back to normal. So it's hyper local when it's used. So when you're looking at your 5 mile radius, you have to look at it as, you have to plan for your, everybody talks about the 72 hours. Well, I believe that we need to be planning for 3 years, and it needs
Yeah,
to be a lifestyle. You need to be part of your lifestyle, because you never know when this is going to happen, especially in a grid down situation, and things are being pushed at us at this point. So there's a lot of different factors in play. So, but you're most likely to shelter in place. Most people sit down and they have to ask that question: am I supposed to bug out? Do I bug out? Do I bug in? What do I do? Well, most people are going to end up sheltering in place,
yeah, in their
because again,
community.
when you start to think about disaster, okay, you don't know whether the roads are going to be passable or whether there's going to be blocks on the road, whether from the natural things like a tree down or water, or from the local security services. You don't
Yeah,
know what's going to be blocked. So
or
most
a community
people.
that blocks bridges, saying we're not allowing anyone from the suburbia or the city to come across this bridge.
Exactly. We had
Now
that
what?
happen to us where we were, right?
Yeah,
And if we would have lost the other bridge, we would have been completely isolated as that community. So, but I'm just saying, you never know what's going to happen. So most people are going to shelter in place, and that's a fact. So for people that are sitting there saying, do I need to plan to bug out? Do I need to plan to bug in? Plan first for bugging in. That's always going to be your first line of defense, right? And again, roads may be blocked. Fuel shortages also may limit the ability to transit anywhere. You might not be able to get gas. What if the electricity is down? You can't use your ATM card. And even if you have cash, they can't pump it, so you have to have some other means. Communications may fail. I'm going down the list of everything that has happened, and every disaster known to man
yep.
in the modern age. So communications fail, and again, having redundancies. That's a huge thing, having more than one way to do something. So another thing that we've learned during natural disasters is that if the cell towers are down and the repeaters are down for law enforcement, then there is no other way to communicate other than if you have your own Starlink or you have your own satellite system in
Yeah.
order to be able to work.
They even,
Plus you have to have power for that.
I don't know if you remember or not, it may have been before you arrived down from your state. uh, in the first 96 hours, when the floodgates opened, um, Western North Carolina specifically, but everything was down comm wise. And
Mhm,
some veteran and some active duty, they came in with portable repeaters,
mhm.
and they still couldn't communicate.
Right.
Because of the terrain, the
Yep.
weather impacted getting to high points that early on, but
Yep.
they could not get the comms up and running. And, in
Mhm.
our Hope for Survival ham radio group, we've been working on this as to trying to get them to understand you have to have redundancy that is not dependent upon
Line of sight or the towers or anything else.
towers,
Yeah.
cell towers. You bet.
And again, I carry a portable repeater with me when I go to a disaster, but again, the same terrain, it has to be line of sight. There's
Yeah,
no way, there's no other way. So if your person is a mile and a half away without line of sight, those repeaters are worthless. So you
yeah,
have to have redundancies. And what you have to understand too is that when something happens, the first responders are going to be overwhelmed, the security forces are going to be overwhelmed. Then again, in their disaster plan, they're going to be locking down infrastructure, and so you and your family will be on your own.
if they have a disaster plan.
Yes, true, true.
As
If
we
they know
learn.
how to implement a disaster plan, I'm just saying.
Yeah,
But if you
yeah.
can't, if you can't survive within your 5 mile radius, long-term plans become irrelevant.
That's where
That's
it's
the
at.
whole point.
The whole
That's the whole point.
the threats to
If you can't
you.
do it,
Yeah. So I want to ask you a question.
yeah,
Another question.
sure.
Uh, I want to preface this question first by saying there are there are quite a few folks that I know within Hope for Survival who are working their butts off, who are doing really good things in the community building, uh, the threat assessments, the mitigation, building bonds between neighbors. Um, but the question I have for you, and I'm asking this because uh, I'm trying to regurgitate to people why this is so important.
Hmm.
And it's because having learned from from Africa to the Balkans, Eastern Europe areas, any area community that did not have some form of a community group,
Hmm.
they were basically steamrolled by threats.
Yeah.
They were basically flushed out. And if anyone who has followed Selko, when he talked about Bosnia and Sarajevo, he was talking about the same things. Okay.
Hmm.
Extremely violent. All right.
Hmm.
And I'm not trying to scare people, but what I'm saying to them is uh, you've got to do the groundwork now to do these assessments, to have the most available total package of information to
Hmm.
help you make wise decisions, right?
Hmm.
So, my question to you is why do you think so many people ignore this information of these things that they need to be doing? And this doesn't just apply from threats, this is from natural disaster type threats as well.
Hmm.
The community is critical. Man made threats, it's critical. Okay.
Hmm.
So, to you, put on your civilian hat.
Hmm.
Um, Maybe you look at your neighborhood or your town. Why do you think so many people are taken for granted? They will tell you all day long all the things that are wrong. And when you
Hmm.
say, well, what are you doing about it? They'll give you that look of, well, nothing. What am I supposed to be doing about it?
Hmm. Right.
Why do you think that's the case?
I think it's number one, they can sit and regurgitate the problems. They can sit in and gripe about certain things, but it comes down to the fact that they don't actually know what to do. No, most people are not self-starters.
Yeah,
That is number one.
true.
People are not, they need a leader. They need leadership or they need some sort of guidance when it comes to certain things, because it's not that they don't want to do some of these things, or that they don't know how to do it, or they don't feel that they have the money to do it. Plus there's a mindset of, well, that's never going to happen here, and even if it does, I'm just going to go. No, I actually heard this one. I actually heard this one when I was in Montana not too long ago. I heard somebody say, I'm just going to go rob the Mormons. And I'm like, you just go ahead and
They have
try.
food.
Whenever you see the kind of firepower that people have, you know what I'm saying? But
Suicide.
that's not a plan. That's not a plan. That's a panic. And that's where people get to. If you fail to plan, you plan to panic. So that so they don't realize that the security comes from actually putting that plan together. That's where your security comes from. Having the things that you need, or that, even the basic amount of it, even the most basic things, can bring about that beginning of security
Yeah,
feeling. Plus, then it will build confidence the more you build to it. But if the first step for people, if we could tell somebody, the first step for you is to go out and buy these 6 items and learn how to use them.
yeah,
Start there. We can talk about food, we can talk about all those other things, but these 6 things right here, these things. So here's the thing. If you were to go and buy a food grade bucket, or go to Lowe's and get a bucket that has a seal on it, a 5-gallon bucket, and you go buy yourself 2 great big 50-pound bags of rice, and you throw them in the freezer for 7 days to kill all the critters, and then you put them in, then you transfer it from the bag into that bucket downstairs in your basement, and you hold on to it. How much did that cost you?
yeah,
But the deliverance, their return on investment is the confidence that just knowing that that's there has.
yeah. It's
So that's one thing you can
period.
do. That's one thing you can do. And then if you do that every payday, and you have this, and then you add to it the wheat berries. You know what I'm saying? Go do the same thing with wheat berries, and alternate every couple of months, whatever you can do. Okay. But in the meantime, get some life straws, get some sort of water filtration thing, buy pool shock. Because
Yeah,
if you keep pool shock there, you can actually clean water, and you have to learn how the right amount. So again, it's not just having it, it's knowing how to use it.
yeah. Most folks
So
leave it in
how
their
much
garage.
yeah, how much pool shock does it take
Yeah,
to do 3 gallons of water, 5 gallons of water? So you don't have to go buy a big Berkey filter, just something basic like that.
make
You
your
can go
own.
more elaborate
You can build
as you
your own.
want to.
You can build your own with some gravel, some sand, and some charcoal and a t-shirt.
Yeah, right. And there's a reason why you don't use the liquid bleach, and you put the pool shock in there. As long as you're sealing it back up really good once you open it, it'll last forever.
Yeah,
Versus liquid bleach. And so there's other things like that. So those things don't cost a lot of money, but think about the money that you invest in those types of things, and that's not even that much. Your return on investment is peace of mind, some confidence, and it brings about a different way of thinking. Now you're planning and not panicking.
yeah. I tell
And
people all the
so,
time, the more prepared that you are, and time you've invested in getting prepared, the
mhm,
better you will feel about the situation.
mhm. And here's the other thing. So when people start thinking about it, they forget that there are already models right here in the United States, the Amish.
Yeah,
They're living without electricity, they're living without the modern day stuff, and they're doing just fine. So there are models out there, you know what I'm saying? So you can buy a book, you can watch YouTube videos, you can do all kinds of things to learn how to do things the way that the Amish do things, so that when the time comes, if your electricity is out, you've already put the things in place that you need to live off grid. So
yeah,
you don't necessarily even have to have another electrical source, as far as to run your refrigerator, if you learn how to do it the Amish way, the way that our great grandparents and our
Yeah.
grandparents did it. You know what I'm saying?
It's a way of
Um,
life then, and now people think
yeah,
you're weird when you talk about it.
right. If you know how to do some things, and again, it's not that hard to learn. That's just a time investment.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
just time. That's just time to learn.
I ran a YouTube video 2 years ago on food preparation, and I
Mhm,
reran it again 3 weeks ago. But basically,
mhm,
was showing. I had the receipt there.
mhm,
Uh, all the different types from can, home can, grocery can, dehydrated, freeze dried, and all the
mhm,
way. But I had food buckets, and for $90, ninety
yeah.
dollars in tax. I
Mhm,
use 5 gallon containers,
mhm.
and each 5 gallon container was enough food for 30 days for two people.
Yep, there you
I
go.
spent $90 and had 3 months of food.
Yeah, there you go. Well,
Now,
you know, and as far as heat and all that other stuff goes, there's other ways to do that. If you take terracotta pots and put a candle under them, you can heat an entire room
yeah,
for
the thing,
for the length of the
but
time that
but
candle
but
heats.
that goes back to the beginning again. It's the percentage of people in America who will stay alive long enough that they start thinking outside the box to survive.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
You know?
here's another reason why I think it's difficult for people too, is that there's so much, the preparedness community is just that, it's a community. So people who've been in the preparedness movement for a long time, they speak in meta messages. So somebody who's just starting out and they're trying to get information, they're not getting it, they're getting it encrypted, or they're getting it impartial, or somebody's looking at them and saying, what do you mean what do you mean you don't have a tourniquet kit? What do you mean you don't have a bleed kit? What do you mean you don't have this? You should have this. But again, how does the person who's just starting out begin to do this? And like I'm saying, if we say these five basic things, the things we just named,
Yeah.
if you started there, then you don't have to worry about a lot of other things, because there's your basic thing, food and water. Okay, then we can start to talk about and put into place all the other options. But your medication, your other stuff, your hygiene stuff, that's all really important too. And there are ways that you can do that. There are J's cases and all those other things now.
Yeah.
But if we started to dial it down for most people, because again, it's just like anything else, you have the experts talking versus the novices talking. You know what I'm saying? They're talking in meta messages. They're talking about, I have a K bar, or I have a shelter half, or I have this. The regular person who's just starting out don't understand. Okay, wait a minute, that's a knife, and that's a tent. You know what I'm saying? So we need to be able to dial it back a little bit for people, because you have a lot of people that are asking a lot of the right questions too. They're searching materials, which one's going to be the best one, and then you have the arguments that start over which one is the best one to have, and you should have this, and you need this, but no, what you actually need to start yourself off
Yeah.
are some basic things that don't cost a lot of money.
So uh, we both have uh, uh, we both have a level of background in psychology.
Mm-hmm.
From your perspective, we'll say the clock is at 12 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
Clockwise is stable, counterclockwise is unstable.
Mm-hmm.
Where would you say the majority of America is at right now?
I think, and this is my personal opinion, because I listen to a lot of different levels of
Yeah.
intelligence, a lot of different news feed, a lot of different things that are coming out of there. Um, the majority of Americans in rural America, they are they are advancing. They're not going backwards. Do you see what I'm saying? Because they have the mindset already. Most of rural
And the
America
skills.
has a well, or has a something, you know what I'm saying? Even in the cities. So if you have a city of 17,000 people, that's rural. And even in a city that size, the mentality or the mindset Can't be one way or the other. And again, that's the bend of the leadership around them. So for instance, in one of the communities, I was talking with an EMA director, and I was talking to him about this preparedness stuff, and I was talking to the county commissioners about putting together a food stash, a food
Right.
cache at the county level. Well, when I left the room, one of the county commissioners came back and told me after you left, the EMA directors looked at us and said, "We don't need any of that. We're not a third world country." And he said, "I disagree that we don't need it. I think we do need it, but trying to get them to change their minds about that, they're not going to do it. Because
Yeah.
again, we're gonna portray that nothing ever happens here, and if it does, we've got it all under control. We're not a third world country. Everything will be here." Well, look at Carter County, Tennessee.
Yep.
Look at Elizabethton.
Yep.
Look at the other places around there. Look at the North Carolinas. See what I'm saying? I'm sure that they thought the same thing. Nothing ever happens here. We're not a third world country. I mean, we have some impoverished people. We might have some challenges, but when push comes to shove and something happens, the state or the locals are going to come and save us. Basically, we're going to get the resources from the government to do what we need to do. Well, that is a fatal mindset.
You just said that they said they're going to get the food from where?
The government, yeah, not going to happen.
Yeah. They're not planning because they're depending on someone else. Just like down at the home neighborhood level, they're not preparing because they're depending that
Mhm.
the trucks are still rolling. Like
Right,
Reagan said,
right,
you're always nine meals from starvation.
yeah.
It's never been
Or
truer than it is right now.
right, or okay, let's go back to the other side. The resources that are sent there, if they are mismanaged to where they're burned or given away or something else because it's the mismanagement.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Those resources don't get to the people that need them. All of a sudden, we have to get rid of this stuff right now, and it's all going out on pallets. Who's taking those pallets? Not people that are going to take them back to their community necessarily to distribute them, but somebody else who's going to stockpile them or sell them on the internet or do
Yeah.
something like that. That is something that I have seen over and over and over again under both administrations. It was less under Republicans than it is under Democrats. And that's my personal experience.
Yeah.
Okay, under the Republicans, that stuff, even if it was time but they made sure before they um, redistributed it to other
Yeah.
shelters or someplace else, they made sure that the local community was no longer in need of it.
They could have
But that
easily.
didn't happen. That didn't happen under this last administration. That had a D in front of it.
Well,
Um,
in Hurricane Helene, the hardest hit counties were Yancey and Mitchell in North Carolina, and just over from them is the Waynesville area. And I know for a fact there were a lot of cases of MREs. They were going to burn them.
yeah,
They could have easily put them on a semi and taken them to Yancey and Mitchell County to stockpile for the winter.
yeah, or give them to their regular
Yeah.
in the county plan. They should have had
Yeah.
distribution centers
Even
there.
Waynesville they had
Hmm.
flood problems after Helene.
Yeah,
That whole area, but
but again, when
but
there's mismanagement at that level, it creates the resource management piece of this in a disaster is essential for taking care of people. Well, we know that anything that the government controls, it doesn't always get done well.
well, and we witnessed it at Helene, and I've witnessed it in numerous places. I'm sure you have too. Um, there's a big difference when your county and community is impacted by a disaster. When you have someone from within that community that is a manager making decisions and knows everything that's coming in and going out, they would have known that those supplies where they were getting ready to move them at the federal level.
Right.
And the mayor, they would have gone to a mayor, to the governor.
Well, actually, they would have gone to the EOC, and there's a
Yeah,
logistics manager that's supposed to be at the county level, a logistics manager
yeah,
that should have been the one that took control of those supplies
yeah, from
for
day
at the
one.
county level, so that they would have been taken and distributed according to the disaster plan.
They just
But
opened
we
the
don't
gates
know
and
that
let
way.
people come in and get them. They said by noon tomorrow
Yes.
they got to be gone or we're going to burn them.
Yeah. Yeah, or they're going to burn them. And I've seen that happen before, only a couple other times. And again, it was not under a under a certain type of administration. But people don't realize that's how that is. Once FEMA sends those resources, they're off the books. They're not taking them back. They become the property of the state and the local people.
Yeah,
So, and again, so that the failure was on the local level there, because again, they didn't have the logistics people coming to pick them up. There should have been county people that had been notified or been told to come in there, because I'm sure that word got around. I'm sure that they called them first and nobody came to get them. And so that tends to be part of the problem. Again, where are you going to store them? Well, that's supposed to be in your disaster plan. That's
yeah,
supposed to be in your local disaster plan, where pods are, points of distribution, and where things are stored. Even if you take it to your local airport hangar,
yeah. Darn.
or fairgrounds. But anyway, those are the kind of things that continue to happen at the local level, because they are no longer doing actual exercises. They're doing tabletops,
Yeah.
which are not the same thing, because you
So,
can't see on a tabletop exercise what it looks like to move something from here to there, and how much gas it's going to take, how much personnel it's going to take, what type of timing it's going to take, what are the obstacles, what are the unless you actually put the exercise on in real time.
yeah.
It doesn't the urgency and the gravity does not form.
Well, just like for your community, in the military, I'll speak for the Air Force side only, but you would get annual inspections from a major command or Air Force level, and they would come in and they would want to see a copy of your plans, right? And if you had a copy, and most of the time, if you had a copy of your plan, you got a check mark. But what they never what they never said to the commander was, well, on here it says you need 180 barriers to secure X. Where are they stored at?
Where are they at? Yeah.
Right.
Hmm.
And it's the same for a community.
Yeah.
If you do not, it's evergreen. You get the only way you know it works is if you go do it, and then you figure
Yeah.
out what didn't work, right?
Yeah.
And you try to fix it. But um, last year, I don't know, it was last summer, I think, sometime. Anyway, I was asked to give lessons learned from Hurricane Helene, a brief to 4 different groups over in Alabama. And I started it out by the first 3 slides. I basically built charts showing them from disaster how it worked. I wanted them to understand, forget the conspiracy stuff. That's what they
Yeah.
like to hear. It's juicy.
Yes.
But let's talk about how the federal government works during a disaster, right?
Hmm.
What role FEMA has, what role the state governor and the mayor has, and the process of getting aid and getting help.
Hmm.
And they're kind of looking like, wow, we never knew that. If
Yeah.
people would understand this process, it would help them so much to understand why they need to be self-sufficient and prepare.
Right.
Instead, they're gambling on all these things. Some of them
Hmm.
are probably true, and some of them may not be true. They're all in the conspiracy bucket, right?
Right.
But a lot
And
of
they're
them are
they
coming
yeah.
true. But
Hmm.
you have a better chance of a problem coming a problem coming to you within your 5 mile radius,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's a pandemic, whether it's theft, whether it's a gang, whether it's starvation, whatever it may be, it's not the Red Army coming across the hill.
Right,
It's not the
right.
Russians landing down at your community airport because someone
Mm-hmm.
started a rumor where, if you really looked into it, you would see that 90% of Russia's aircraft couldn't land on your airfield because it's too short. But they still believe this stuff, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
trying to get the mind past that to,
right. Again, it goes back to the statement that I made earlier, that preparedness it shouldn't begin nationally. It has to begin locally.
yeah,
They're all local. Just
yeah,
like all politics are local. It's the same concept, you know. Um, people look too far out rather than closely in. Plus,
yeah,
nobody's even thinking about the asymmetric threats. So like in my own where I am, I have in 30 miles in one direction, I have maximum security prison and a minimum security prison. Well, where we
not
house
good.
death row, actually, within 30 miles of me. And then it's 60 miles from me, I have three more prisons south of me. So north of me, I have two prisons. South of me, I have three prisons. And then I believe east of me, I have at least one. Do you see what I'm saying? Those
Yeah,
are all asymmetric threats that when those people, and again, if the electricity goes down, they're letting people out. People are going to get out. And what people don't realize is that the people that are on the inside, especially the ones that are lifers or whatever, they're ready for that scenario. They know exactly what they're going to do. They know they're going to go hit an armory, or they're going to go hit a gun store. They're going to go hit something, and they're going to get themselves armed. Then they're going to maraud wherever they can. And guess what? They're going to go where they think that they can hold out. So they're not necessarily going to go to the big city. They're probably going to go someplace rural. I live in a lake community. It's not gated, it's not anything like that, but guess where people think money is?
yeah.
You know? I'm just saying, there's things like that, or supplies. So
There's
you
been
have to look
a
at the asymmetric threats around you as well.
there's been discussion, 5 years ago or so, there was always discussion of the city, the city, the city.
Right.
But in the last year to 2 years, maybe, some of the voices that uh, so I listen to a lot of voices, but there's basically four voices that I really listen to and hone in on: Matt Bracken, Michael Yon, and then on the weather and things like that is
Hmm.
uh, David Devine at Adapt 2030 and Dane Wigington.
Hmm.
Listen to them really close, but they've started talking about
Yeah,
the
a lot of people are,
rural,
because again, one of the reasons for that, where are your resources going to most likely be?
rural.
Where are the people going to go when the city no longer has sewer, that the sewage is now running into your homes because the pumps are down?
Yep.
Where are people going to go? They're going to have to evacuate the city,
Septic,
whether on their own or whether somebody's pushing them out. Where are they going to go?
septic tanks,
That's what I'm
outhouses.
saying. That's what I'm saying. But they can no longer, their home is no longer habitable because they were on a city sewer line and the sewer backed up into their, because the pump stopped working. That's an inevitability. So unless you have something on your sewer line that creates it from not allowing it to back up, because there's these little things that you can attach to your sewer line outside to keep it from backing up. There's a little thing you can have a plumber put right on your sewer line, because it is guaranteed to happen when the sewage pumps fail at the sewage center. It's guaranteed that on every level that homes will be backed up with sewage and become uninhabitable. Then you have the diseases that come from that
Yeah.
if you try to
Oh
stay.
yeah.
So you have all those things. So where are they going to go? They're going to go rural.
One of
And
the
so,
things when I do my own personal threat matrix for my community here, and then when I do classes on the 5 mile radius, one of the things I show is, especially if you're what we would call rural Poduntville type, small,
mhm,
is basically put a pin in your town on a map and go out a tank of gas
Yeah.
and do a circle all the way around. And if people start fleeing those large areas, you're probably going to get
Yep.
a lot of,
Yeah.
or depending on what kind of event occurs.
Right. But and guess what those people don't have with them? They don't
Food,
have their own food, they don't have their own water, they don't have their own stuff
yeah.
because they didn't prepare for that and they didn't evacuate with it. So they were not prepared for it. They don't have the right clothes for being in rural, they don't have boots, they don't have gloves, they don't have the things that they need. So where exactly are they going to get it?
So
And so people, that's the whole point of building community out here.
yeah, and when you
That's the
do
whole
your
point.
in your
Yeah.
in the class that I do on the 5 mile radius, one of the things that we really focus on is you looking at your community, right? How many people own homes? How many people rent? How many people? What's your percentage of high school, the folks that don't complete high school, right? This isn't discriminated. This is just looking at statistics.
Hmm.
But people who make less wages often rent. And if they lose their job, they can't pay rent and they're out on the street. Where are they going to go?
Yeah.
You need to know these things and these employers where they're at in the vicinity, right?
Hmm. Did you see today? Today, I think it was on Fox News. Um, there was a family. I can't remember where they were. I'm sorry, I can't remember where they were, whether they were in Alabama or where they were. Anyway, um, they started to notice things in their house going missing or moved around or something like that, and it began to get a little creepy. So then they started looking around the house, and they found a homeless man living in their basement in a closet.
I saw the headline on that, but I didn't read it. Is that what it was?
Yeah. Yeah, he was in a closet. He had made his own bed down there. Everything was when the family left to go to work. He was upstairs watching TV, eating their food, wearing their shoes. And they came down, her son-in-law came down and they called him out, called the police, and they're like, we really feel bad for this man. But that's coming to a town near you because the homeless are no longer staying in the cities. And we are creating them locally because of these exact same things that you're talking about.
Oh yeah. So you've got the migration of increased homelessness that are transiting away, or that the cities are
Hmm.
trying to flush to another area, like what happened in Waynesville, North Carolina.
Hmm.
I mean, their numbers skyrocketed, and most of them were coming from the West Coast,
Hmm.
because
Right.
they had a new homeless shelter deal that was built, and when they opened it, they ran an article and it went national in the newspapers, and all these folks got on buses,
Yep.
and it's really changed the face of Waynesville, North Carolina.
Hmm.
You know, well, we're right at an hour. I can't believe
Hmm.
it, because we could have this conversation for long hours, because
Hmm.
um, I just find that I find it very troublesome that we're, as a nation, that we're at this point, and you personally want to have hope, and you want to give other
Hmm.
people hope, and the best hope I can give them, other than their faith, is
Hmm.
the more prepared that you get and that you understand what's going on around you, the better chance
Hmm.
you're going to have
Hmm.
of coming out on the other end.
Absolutely true. Here's another thing that I always think about. One of the things that I know to be true is that you get to choose. We all get to choose because there are circumstances that are beyond our control. Stuff is going to happen.
Yeah.
We have no choice over that. It's going to happen. But we get to choose who we're going to be and how we're going to be when that thing happens. The more prepared we are, the less panic we are. The more we plan, the less we panic. And the more that we have some sort of understanding of what it's like to live without, it's not the end of the world to live without electricity.
No.
It is not the end of the world. like I said, the Amish do it every single day. It's a matter of perspective. And so if the best hope I can give somebody is to really walk around your world, go and get as much information as you can, find your plan, find your way of doing something, but you get to choose.
Yeah.
No, but we're walking around as if everything's already been taken from us. Like we don't have choices. The government's just going to come in, or somebody's going to come in and do this. We get to choose what's happening with us, you
There it
know?
is.
I think to that to as much as that is in our control, our ability to choose who we're going to be and how we're going to manage it. I believe that everybody right now, if they sit down and they watch us and they start to just make a decision to say, you know what, I'm going to go buy those 5 gallon buckets and a 50-pound bag of rice, and I'm going to start there. I think that they will be better off. I think just the amount of comfort or the amount of even peace or confidence, whatever it will be, just to make that decision and then actually do it.
I
I
had a
think that
really good.
that will change.
I was trying to find it. It was sitting here. I had a box of like 300 little cards
Mm-hmm.
that you could sit around the table with your neighbors,
Mm-hmm.
and you pull out and read a card, and each one is a different kind of disaster.
Yeah.
And it's a great what if. What would you do?
Yeah.
How, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You try to get people to start thinking. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, uh, like I said, we could have this discussion for hours and hours and hours.
Yeah.
And the big thing is just trying to encourage folks again, is that someone in your home has to be a leader. Someone in
Yeah.
your community needs to be a leader.
Yeah.
You need to come together, just like you would if your community got hit by a tornado or a hurricane.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
Because, in that scenario, all the noise stops. All the noise of you need to have this and you should have had that, or you should get this one and not that one. All the noise stops and everybody comes together and begins to work and put their hands together. And we all bring what we have. It's community. At the end of the
it's
day, it starts and finishes there.
and you witness it over and over and over. And for anyone that's never been in any kind of a disaster,
Yeah.
that's how it happens. That's how it works.
Yep. Yep.
Government does government things, state does state things, and the rest is left up to you to feed the people
Yep.
around you. So,
Yep. That's how it works.
well, Chaplain Tracy, it's been awesome. We'll do this again real soon.
Okay. Just
Um,
give me a call.
look forward to it. And thank you, and tell Mr. Hello,
I will.
if you would. And everyone, thanks for tuning in. If you like this information, please hit like. If you have comments, please leave them. Um, and if you have not subscribed, I'm not giving away Twinkies and Ding Dongs to get you to subscribe. It's for your own good. So, till next
Mhm.
time, take care, stay safe, and remember, we are the most blessed people in the world. Bravo
Mhm.
Echo out. Thank you for checking out the Hope for Survival YouTube channel. If you are new to Hope for Survival, you can check out our books at our webpage. Book 1, which is Hope for Survival, Getting You Prepared for Disasters, and Book 2, Hope for Survival, The Mindset, are both available for order on the website. We also offer the Hope for Survival football stick, which is a memory stick set up as a digital filing cabinet with files already loaded on there for you to digitally copy items such as deeds, auto transcript for ownership, wills, living wills, loans, banking information, items that if your home burned down or you had some form of a disaster, you could have all your important papers already digitally filed on this stick. All you do is simply drag the digital file into the appropriate preset folder so that you'll have it in the event of a disaster. You have to flee your home in a hurry, or also if you're away from home and you need critical information that's personal, If you have your memory stick with you, you can put it in your computer and pull that information up wherever you may be. Again, you can find these items to order at our website, https www.hopeforsurvival.com, or you can email me at preparedness101@protonmail.com, and I will try to help you out. Again, thanks for checking out the Hope for Survival YouTube channel. Hope to see you again.